War Eagle Auburn family, good morning, Auburn. How is it going? We're back here at E2C Network Live for another edition of E2C Network Live and another edition of Good Morning Auburn. Thank you for joining us, whether you're watching live or you're watching on the replay. We appreciate you being here, hanging out with us, spending some time talking about something within the Auburn family spectrum. As we've been doing over the last few days, trying out something new, giving you guys a early morning live stream. Appreciate those of you that are here live to be able to participate and chat with us about this topic. What a weekend it was for Auburn football in the transfer portal and recruiting for Auburn football and Coach Hugh Freeze. Very successful. I think a lot of us were expecting some success, but not that amount. And so that was a very nice surprise for a lot of us and a very nice surprise for, I'm sure, the coaches, too, to have all of that kind of coincide together in a matter of what felt like 24 hours. On this stream, we're going to be doing our What It Means series that we typically do with one person at a time. But because of the nature of all of these coming in so close together and us not wanting to get too far behind, and who knows whatever else was going to come out, we're going to go ahead and do all three of those guys right now together. So if you've seen our when we get a commit alert and What It Means series, this is that same exact thing here, and we'll take some of your comments and questions. You just get a little extra of that. So we're going to try to move through it very swiftly because I know a lot of you want to get the information and get out, but we do want to give you an opportunity to interact with us while you're here. As you come into the stream today, do me a favor right now, all together, smash that like button. Do that for us. It is a huge help helping us figure out. And I just realized I have the wrong little marquee up here. We'll bring that down for a second while I get the other one set up for you guys. That's the trouble with doing a morning show. Sometimes you don't pay attention to some of those things. But regardless, I want you to go ahead and do that for me right now and post where you're watching from. City, state, international. Go ahead and post that if you can. It will help us as well, and it'll let me know who's here hanging out with me. So there we go. The transfer portal ready to roll. That other marquee that you saw up there was our show from last night. If you wanted to check that out, you more than likely are more than welcome to do that as well. So we got Michael checking in. We have Felix checking in. Good to see you guys. Thanks for being here. Let's jump right in to this topic today. So what I thought I'd do is kind of walk through my list. So when we do this, a lot of the times you're seeing the more polished version of it and me cutting in and out of things, the edited version of this. So you're kind of just seeing me walk through my process of all the notes I take about these particular guys. So 3 different transfers for the transfer portal: Mosiah Nasili-Kite, DeMario Tolan, or Tolan. I don't know if it's Tolan or Tolan. I'm going to guess it's Tolan. Probably Tolan, actually. Lawrence Johnson as well. And if you were on social media, you know that I misspelled it to Lawrence. Apparently spelling's hard for me. Lawrence Johnson. So those are your 3. Let's talk about who they are, a little bit about each of them and what it means. So I'll take a little bit of a break between each of those little different sections just so that I can address anything that you're interested in talking about or maybe expound upon that. But like I said, we've got 3 to get through in our short amount of time that we spend together in the morning. So let's go ahead and do that. Mosiah Nasili-Kite committed on Saturday the 7th, a transfer from Maryland. How long has it been since we've had somebody like from Maryland? I know he's not from Maryland necessarily, but just that area coming over to be with Auburn. The last time I can remember someone being, I think it was Stephon Diggs, who was kind of associated. Was it Stephon Diggs, or there was somebody in that cycle with him that was somewhat associated with being potentially coming to Auburn. So it's been a while since we've had someone move on over from there. At the time, he was the 5th transfer of the cycle, and he has 1 year of eligibility. So really just coming to fill a role this year, and maybe a big role, and then moving on to do what he wants to do next with his life, whether that be the NFL, one of the other professional leagues, or something like that. But very excited to have him as part of the team. Timeline for how all this happened: he signed with Maryland back on December 18th of 2019, enrolled in June 10th of 2020. So he spent those several years with Maryland, and then obviously entered the transfer portal on January 1st, New Year's Day, and after 1 visit to Auburn. That's all it took. He was an Auburn Tiger. He's listed as a 3-star defensive lineman, originally from Puyallup, pull y'all up. That's interesting. Washington, Emerald Ridge High. His measurables 6'2", 310 pounds. Really good space filler there in the middle of the defensive line. I've seen one or two people say defensive end for him. I'm like, I don't think 310 is going to have him at defensive end. Defensive tackle is where he's going to be. That's where he's projected. Really interesting to watch the progression of this day after that Tyler Scott commitment, a traditional high school recruit. We had him almost immediately after that decide to transfer to Auburn, followed by the next one that morning. And then right after that on Sunday, which we'll talk about in just a second, Sunday lunchtime is when the next transfer came in. So he was the first of that string. Stats for you to consider for him from the last season at Maryland: solo tackles 18, assisted tackles, solo tackles were 12, assisted were 18, so 30 total. Tackles for loss, it looks like we had 28, 8. It's a little bit confusing. 26. He had 2.5 sacks and then also 1 interception for 11 yards. So very versatile guy with a lot of talent that he's bringing to the table that can help fill a role at Auburn. What it meant for Auburn at the time. So obviously when we talk about these, what it means sections in these first two, it's going to obviously change a little bit drastically. But at the time, it was the 25th commit, the 14th defensively, the 8th on the defensive line or edge position, and the 3rd defensive tackle. Obviously, when you bring in a transfer like this with this experience, they're brought in to fill a role immediately. So no red shirting for him. And this is would be his 6th year, I think is what it is. The depth chart as it stood when he came in here: Jason Jones, Marcus Harris, Jeffrey Imba, Zacchaeus Walker. So still a lot of faces there, but you need a lot to rotate in and out depending on how many interior defensive linemen you're going to be playing in a game. I have him listed as obviously being from Washington originally, and not that it really affects us in the recruiting game, but it's always nice to have someone from that state to create a relationship to maybe up to that state. And not necessarily that you're going to have a pipeline from the state of Washington, but at least gives you a relationship up there to work with maybe. And then at the time, it gave us, as I said, 8 defensive linemen or edge position guys, 5 of those being defensive ends or edges, the 3 defensive tackles. The other 2 are Quintrell Jameson Travis and Steven Johnson. All right, so that's the first one we've already got there. We gotta keep piling through here. But if you have thoughts about him, if you'd like to discuss him at all, drop those in there. We'll come back to those on the back end and talk about those. Or if there's any other questions that you have about him, do that. And we will definitely talk about him a little bit more in detail. Mosiah Nasili-Kite. Let's move on to DeMario Tolan. This is probably the big surprise, right? We all woke up and found a nice little treasure for us under the tree, even though Christmas was gone. Hugh Freeze worked his magic and got a really good, highly coveted high school recruit at the time, but he was a transfer from LSU, so he spent 1 year there for us on Sunday morning. Very surprised by that, and a pleasant surprise at that, to fill a need that we had at Auburn. One of the things that Coach Hugh Freeze said when he got done with his early signing day press conferences, we still have some areas of need for immediate things, and this is one of those needs. So we definitely were able to do that. Neil, good to see you. Thanks for being here. This is the one I wanted to know about. Okay, so Tolan is who you wanted to know about. Well, let's dive into him right here. Committed / signed, because all these guys are signed now, because those usually happens that way. Sunday, early morning, the 8th. Transfer from LSU, the 6th of the cycle at that time. He has 3 years left of eligibility. Only spent 1 at LSU. So this is an odd transfer. Not odd, I shouldn't say that, but it is a transfer that when you think of them, they usually come in with like 2 years, maybe, like as we've talked about, was Mosiah, only 1 year. 3, this guy could potentially be the future at this position. So it's a huge get for Auburn in a lot of ways. How it happened, how he got here to Auburn, his last official visit to Auburn before all of this was back on November 26, 2021. He signed with LSU on December 15th of 2021, enrolled at LSU on January 11th, spent this season with them, and then entered the transfer portal on January 4th, and quickly, like within days, he entered the portal, took a visit to Auburn, and signed with Auburn. You'll understand why in just a little bit when we talk about something related to that in just a second, and it'll make a lot of sense at that point. So about DeMario Tolan. I'm going to say it back and forth different ways. 4-star linebacker from Orlando, Florida, from Dr. Phillips High School. Never heard of Dr. Phillips High School. That guy must have donated a lot of money to that school. His measurables, 6'2", 220 pounds. Now, when he came in his first year, remember, this is just his second year in the college game. He was on the smaller side. I think he was like 190 something, but he gained a lot of weight, obviously filled himself out, got himself ready to play the college game. He actually played a lot of different positions in high school, so very athletic. He was a hurdler on the track team, so you can understand why he's a very valuable asset, a very athletic option to have at a linebacker position for Auburn now. So very excited about those things. Cool storylines around this guy. He's the second of those string of bang, bang, bang transfers over Saturday and Sunday. And I know you guys don't want me to bring his name up, but you should thank Brian Harsin for not obviously being able to bring him in from the very beginning, but at least being able to start a relationship with him, because this goes back to the push that they made for him at the end of 2021, right before he committed to LSU. And you got to think the quick decision that DeMario Tolan made goes back to that relationship that was established there, but obviously nurtured now by the staff. Obviously, we give the credit to this staff for this, but it's just an interesting thing to think about. I know a lot of there's not a good sentiments about Brian Harsin, but at least you got to thank him somewhat for that. His season at LSU, he played early and often. All the 12 games that they played, he participated in 10 total tackles, 3 solo, and 7 assists. So not by any stretch of the imagination one of their most dominant players, not by any stretch of the imagination one of their highest contributors, but there was a lot of hope for him. And from what I understand from LSU fans, they were shocked that he decided to enter the portal. We're happy about it, though. All right, what does it mean for DeMario Tolan? Currently, we'll start with what it meant for the class with his commitment. And at the time, it was the 26th commit, the 15th on defense, and the very first linebacker commit. Now, for a while there, what was his name? Terrence Love was listed as a linebacker, but he is now it seems he is going to move what to a lot of people thought he would be, which is a safety. When you bring in a transfer of this type of profile, I wouldn't call it experience, but he does have experience. It's not significant. He's got playing time. The plan probably is to play him right away. No redshirting here. And really, when you look at the depth chart for Auburn, you got Cam Riley, Wesley Steiner, Robert Woodyard are probably your most high-profile linebackers at that position. And I know I'm missing a few there, but I'm just throwing out some of the prominent names. When I say all those names, nobody has really established themselves outside of Owen Pappoe, who's gone now, as the leader of that group. That some have had some great moments. So this is a guy who could be stepping in to a role of becoming that leader, even as young as he is. And he will probably have an option to play very early and very often, maybe even start. We will watch and eagerly wait and see what happens. Look, I like talking about battleground, regional stuff and recruiting in terms of what it means for this commitment. He was the 4th from the state of Florida, at least where they originally came from. It's a transfer, so he technically came from LSU too. So it would make him the 2nd from the state of Louisiana for this class, but really the 4th. Huge battleground state, top 3, the number 3 in that list of Alabama, Georgia, Florida that you got to win in. And so we had a lot of other Florida commits this cycle, but they have kind of dropped off from us because of all the turmoil. Nice to have that starting to build back up in the class. All right, so that is DeMario Tolan. Would love to hear any thoughts or questions that you have about him in the chat. What we're going to do is run through our last guy here, and then we're going to kind of breathe for a second and talk about some of those things for the last few minutes of our time together. So let's walk through that. The final one of that big day, Lawrence Johnson on Sunday the 8th, transfer from Purdue. So think about it. You got one from the ACC, one from the SEC, and one from the Big Ten. All power conferences, all, groups that you really want to draw from if you're going to be drawing talent in on the transfer portal. Nice to see it's Power 5. At the time, and now currently, the 7th transfer of the cycle in his final year of eligibility. He signed with Purdue on December 20th, 2017, enrolled with Purdue on June 11th, 2018, and obviously entered the transfer portal after spending, 5 years with them in his 6th year of eligibility on December 21st, and spent enough time thinking about it over the Christmas holidays, took a visit, and decided to come to Auburn. He is considered a 3-star defensive lineman from Fort Wayne, Indiana, from R. Nelson Schneider High. So would be probably, I believe, the first from Indiana. We'll get down there in just a second. His measurables list him at 6'3", 310 pounds. So in this group of 3 transfers that we're talking about, you've got 2 guys of humongous size, space filling potential at those positions, because he is projected as a defensive tackle, as you would expect, right? That kind of size is what puts you there and expects you to be at that particular position. As we already talked about, he's the 3rd of that string of transfers. Stats for him from this past season, or actually this is his whole career: 88 tackles, total tackles, 2.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss in his career. What does it mean for him and for Auburn after his commitment? Well, for the recruiting class now, currently, and now keep in mind, we have talked about our most recent regular high school recruit, CJ Johnson, in another video. Need to go check that out if you want to. At the time, it was the 27th commit, 16th on defense, the 9th defensive lineman, edge rusher position type of role, and the 4th defensive tackle. When transfer, in terms of future stuff, how will he play? 1 year of eligibility, he's going to play. Question is, how often will he start? I don't know if he'll start, but we'll have some roles to fill for him very quickly. Again, your depth chart at that position: Jason Jones, Marcus Harris, Jeffrey Imba, Zykevius Walker, and now you even have Mosiah Nasili-Kite in at that position too. So obviously he will play a big factor in the rotation of that as well. Not really a battleground state as we talked about, but from the state of Indiana, always nice to have someone to build a relationship in that state for future needs if we do want to go back through that state. Lastly, in terms of what it means for this guy and the defensive tackle class, more specifically, we talked about it: 9 from the defensive line edge position. 5 of those are defensive ends, edges. This would be the 4th defensive tackle. Those other 2: Quintrell Jameson Travis, Steven Johnson, and Mosiah Nasili-Kite. So now the big question shifts from him, right? Or from him about this group. Are we done? As Trevon Reed would say, are we done yet? My answer basically has to be, from this point, no. Because I asked Trevon Reed that on social media myself, and he said no. But he's just speaking in generalities and not necessarily about this position. Here's what I do know is Coach Freeze said we needed a lot of help at those positions. I would expect maybe another linebacker. Who knows? Maybe another defensive tackle, defensive lineman to come on in here. Maybe another offensive lineman. And it would sure be nice to see a surprise like wide receiver, a surprise quarterback come into that. So that's maybe what you can expect from that. All right, I'll go back and look at some of your comments and questions that you brought up throughout, but drop them in now. We're not going away just yet, but at the end of the meat and potatoes of our content on these morning shows, I'm going to give you the schedule, the upcoming schedule, and what to do for us, things to be aware for the E2C network stuff. So we'll come right back to comments and questions here in just a second. As we have talked about, don't miss our next scheduled live stream, Auburn versus Ole Miss, tomorrow night, right after the game. Hope you'll choose us for your post-game reaction content and join our conversation over there. If you haven't, be a subscriber so you can get that subscriber giveaway prize, and drop a comment on this video after the live stream is over, because that will help enter you into the contest as well. You can be a channel member, you can be a Booster Club member. You don't have to do any of those things, but we would appreciate it if you at least check them out. all the other description links to help support our content. But the big thing you can do is smash that like button and be here, hang out with us. Great crowd this morning. You guys showed up and showed out. Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. I still get used people calling these podcasts, but I guess they are. To me, a podcast is audio only, but these days people, just associate video microphone as a podcast. So either way, whatever you consider us, thank you. I appreciate that. Felix is like relieved. Thank God we got all these. The big name out there that a lot of people are interested in is if Spencer Sanders comes from Oklahoma State. My interpretation of what's going on there is that's probably a no, but we'll see. Any thoughts on these guys? If I had to rank my favorite out of this, it's probably going to be Tolan, however you say it, because we did need a linebacker in this class or transfer portal. Probably another one. What makes me so excited is not necessarily his stars option, but he's just not your typical transfer, right? He is your transfer that comes in with so much eligibility that he basically becomes another high school athlete with experience in the SEC. How much better does it get than that? Then it would probably be Mosiah Nasili-Kite and then Lawrence Johnson. That is not me saying that's who's going to be the best one for us. Who knows? It could be completely reversed there. But we do know that we needed all of these guys to be able to contribute now. Excuse me, running on a little running nose today. I believe Freeze is working on a couple big wide receiver transfers and at least one top wide receiver that didn't sign in December. Yeah, I've heard those too. We'll see. We've also heard that throughout the cycle. We can hear a lot of things. Let's just see what happens first. But right now, this is a great class and a great transfer portal, considering where we were, what he had to work with, the time frame with what he had to work with, whether we get a big wide receiver, small wide receiver, a quarterback or not. We filled the needs and then some, and probably are still going to do that a little bit. Yes. So Hugh Freeze has come in right away and done what he needed to do. Recruit, fill the needs. Now we got to figure out if that proven winner, reputation he has translates to Auburn. So we'll wait and see. Who do you think about recruiting so far? Could you rephrase that, Felix? Because how do I feel about recruiting so far? This cycle, I'm pleased. If that's what you're asking, I'm very pleased with how we've done. Sure, would it be great to be in the top 10 rankings? Sure, but that doesn't necessarily mean everything. It doesn't matter how many stars somebody comes in with. It matters what they go out with. So many of the guys that we've talked about in some of our videos are proof of that alone. So I'm very pleased with it. Done exactly what we've needed to do and then some. So it doesn't just check the box. It like double checks the box for me. And I'm not just trying to talk in hyperbole just because I like where we're at right now, but because I really think we've done a good job about that. And quarterback, obviously, no one really knows what's going to happen there because we've heard names like Grayson McCall, Spencer Sanders, many others. To me, it really feels like at the quarterback transfer portal position, you're going to find someone that is going to have to be a really good fit, and it'll all just have to come together like that. So that being said, celebrate these guys because even though they're not the big flashy ones that you probably are wanting to talk about and focus on, these are going to be big contributors this year. You're going to be talking about Nasili-Kite, Tolan, and Lawrence Johnson all throughout this year in playing time, contributing, and it's going to be really excited to watch them. Thank you guys for tuning into this live stream this morning. Like I said, stay tuned. We will probably do a few more of those this week, trying out something new. And I appreciate those of you that chose to watch live and hang out with me here and be part of our little family within the Auburn family, because you are the best little family within the Auburn family. And I appreciate you being here today. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.